Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the channel. Dylan here. We have a major update today from former Vice President Mike Pence that you don't want to miss, okay? The truth about Mike Pence has finally been exposed, and it is crazy, my friends. The real reason Mike Pence turned his back on Trump has come out. And not only that, but Mike Flynn just called out Mike Pence just a few minutes ago from Vivek Ramaswamy that you do not want to miss. A massive, massive win coming from Vivek Ramaswamy. So many of you have messaged me saying that your investments are up thousands of dollars. We are now running a 90% off sale on the Invest Like Trump program. The link is below, or you can type in thefinanceZone.org, and when you sign up, you will get up to $1,000 in bonus stocks inside the program. Okay, so here's Mike Flynn today. He says, here's a couple more to attack, especially Pence for all he has done, but you won't because you're being paid to attack them. So Mike Pence, I guess, went to Ukraine, to the annual prayer breakfast. He went to Kiev, Ukraine. American presence is so important, says Keith Kellogg. Religion plays a key role in both our nations from Valley Forge to today. So why is Mike Pence all of a sudden in Ukraine? Meeting up with, this guy, Keith Kellogg. Who is General Keith Kellogg? War by other means, a general in the Trump White House. Almost seems like the book is, using Trump's name, and also maybe he's going to say some bad things about Donald Trump in that book. Look at them, meeting up with Zelensky. Why is Mike Pence involved in this meeting in Ukraine? Mike Pence is the former vice president, really has nothing to do with American politics, but they're saying it's so important to have American presence in Ukraine. And we all know there's a lot of money that has been going on with the Ukraine war, for sure. I mean, what is Mike Pence doing in Ukraine? Nobody really knows. Look at him here. He says, visiting Ukraine today, 4.5 years after the brutal and unprovoked invasion by Russia. So he's clearly pushing this anti-Russia narrative. Again, he's the former vice president. He says, I sense that the Ukrainians' steely will and commitment to defend their freedom is even greater today than when the Russian tanks first rolled. Ukraine is winning this war. With the right support of America and our allies, the brave Ukrainian people can achieve a victory for freedom themselves and the free world. So why is Mike Pence coming out and talking about Ukraine here and saying, look, Ukraine is winning this war, saying, talking bad about Russia?
Well, Chris, thanks for having me on. I had an opportunity to address the National Prayer Breakfast this morning, but President Zelensky and I met afterwards in a private discussion, and I have to tell you that you sense in that packed room right here in the heart of Kiev the resolve and the determination of the people of Ukraine. 4.5 years after that brutal and unprovoked invasion by Russia, I sense that the steely will, commitment to defend their freedom is even greater today than the day that the Russian tanks first rolled. So President Zelensky and I talked about their specific needs, but the first impression I want to give your viewers around the country is that the people of Ukraine are on a frontier of freedom. And as I said today at the breakfast, I think this battle is part of the long-standing battle between liberty and tyranny, between good and evil. And now more than ever, the people of Ukraine deserve the support of the American people, of our allies across the free world. And with that support, they will continue to win this fight against the Russian war machine.
The Russia war machine, he's calling it. And he's actually now coming out and giving advice on CNN to Donald Trump. I mean, what position is Mike Pence in to give advice to Trump on CNN with Dana Bash?
Here with me now from Ukraine is former Vice President Mike Pence. Thank you so much for being here. You are in Kyiv. We can see the beautiful shot there and hear the bells.
It's so weird. CNN calling in Mike Pence from Ukraine. Like, what world is CNN living on that this matters at all? He's the former vice president who Donald Trump doesn't even talk to. Mike Pence's wife didn't even shake Trump's hand at the funeral.
And I know that you went to the National Prayer Breakfast this morning.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you. You went to this breakfast to mark 35 years since the end of the Cold War. Of course, you're also there amid heavy Russian attacks, even in recent days. You met with President Zelensky. What did he tell you about this moment for Ukraine and what they still need?
Well, to be gathered and have the chance to address the National Prayer Breakfast as the 35th anniversary of the fall of the Soviet Union and Ukraine's independence. It was a great privilege for me.
So weird they're doing this with the bells going on in the background. It's like kind of weird messaging, right? Like, dude, put him in a hotel room so you don't have to hear that.
Thousands of people gathered from across Ukraine and frankly around the world. And the sense you have of the deep resolve, not only of the leadership from President Zelensky on down, but rank and file military, everyday Ukrainians is palpable. Look, Ukraine is winning this war. 4.5 years after that brutal and unprovoked invasion by Russia, Ukraine's military on the front lines has fought Russia to a stalemate. And by essentially reinventing drone warfare, they've taken the fight directly in to the heart of Russia. They've sunk ships in the Black Sea. It's really been extraordinary. They have challenges with ballistic missiles that President Zelensky and I talked about, Dana, but the incredible determination of these people fighting on what I believe is just the latest front line of freedom, of the battle between liberty and tyranny, the battle between good and evil, is deeply inspiring to be here.
Well, you mentioned the missiles, that they have effectively run out of U.S.-made Patriot missiles, which is their really only defense, aside from those drones, against Russian missile strikes. The shortage is being driven by the Iran war. Sources tell CNN the U.S. has burned through roughly half of its Patriot missile supply defending against Iranian attacks. Are Ukrainians paying the price for the president's war with Iran?
Well, I don't see it that way, and I don't think the Ukrainians do either. I mean, as I talked to President Zelensky, he made it very clear that they have the ability to deal with the drone warfare. On some occasions, Russia has sent thousands of drones. They're able to take those down. But recently, and I think it's an act of desperation, Vladimir Putin has begun to fire those high-arc ballistic missiles into Ukraine, and without a sufficient amount of either Patriot or THAAD, anti-ballistic missile systems, they essentially are going to be deeply vulnerable, particularly in the winter months. One of the things President Zelensky made clear to me is that he fully expects that as winter approaches, sooner than later, that Putin will start to strike not just a children's school and hospital as he did this week, not just a shopping mall taking more than a dozen lives, but that he'll start to strike that energy infrastructure to try and essentially impose, the deep winter cold on the people of Ukraine. So President Zelensky he said, we're looking just for 5% of your remaining Patriot inventory, and he believes that would get them through the winter months. But I also believe that there may be an opportunity for other allies. South Korea has interceptors that are very sophisticated, and with some of the back and forth between the president and South Korea this week, this might be an opportunity for President Lee to step forward, make those interceptors available to the United States to deploy either in the Middle East or here in Ukraine or to European allies who could do the same. So it really is an extraordinary time in the life of this country's fight for 4.5 years, and But I want to say to your viewers around the world, to be on the ground here after the devastating attacks of this last week by Russia, and seeing the resolve and the determination, Ukraine is winning this war, and if we give them what they need, they're going to secure their sovereignty and a peaceful and just future. I just know it with all my heart.
President Trump, turning to Iran, says the situation in Iran is so good. But
yeah, it's kind of weird how they're trying to, still use it's almost like they're using Pence as someone who's still going to critique Trump to push their narrative. 6
months into a war that he said would last about 6 weeks, he's stuck in a stalemate. His 60-day ceasefire expired, no signs of a peace deal or plans for further talks. And this morning, Iran's president says that it is in a full-scale war with the U.S. If you were still Donald Trump's vice president, what would you advise him to do right now?
Well, first, I just want to reiterate, I think President Trump did exactly the right thing, taking the fight for the first time directly to the mullahs in Tehran last year and again this year in Operation Epic Fury. Our military did a brilliant job. The USS Abraham Lincoln is steaming home. I know some folks that were flying aircraft off that ship. They took down 13,000 sites, but then they stopped, Dana, as you suggest. We started into a period of ceasefires. We negotiated the 60-day MOU, which turned out to be for naught. And I think, as the president announced, strong new D-Day style economic sanctions, it's going to be absolutely imperative that we keep the pressure on and that we keep the military assets in the region to be able to take the action that I believe is going to be inevitable. Look, you don't make peace with your enemy. You make peace with your defeated enemy. And the kind of rhetoric you heard from the president of Iran this morning proves that the Iranians don't yet understand that they have been defeated, despite the fact that they have been. But I think it's going to be essential that we keep the pressure on, keep the military assets in the region, because I think the time is going to come sooner rather than later when the president and our ally Israel are going to have to go in and finish the job.
I want to ask you about something a little closer to home in the U.S., and that is the renewed trade war between Canada and the U.S. going dollar for dollar on 50% tariffs. Trade talks collapsed on Friday night. The Canadian Prime Minister blamed unfair last-minute demands by the U.S., saying the administration asked too much and offered too little, and that Canada is effectively at war with the U.S. on trade. Does that help Americans right now?
Look, we hear about the issue of affordability right now, and as you know, I've taken a firm position since Liberation Day tariffs that fortunately the Supreme Court turned over, that American businesses and American consumers pay American tariffs. And I think the last thing we need right now, as our economy is getting back on its feet, is a trade war with Canada. But yeah, my hope is I was in on all the negotiations for the USMCA. I know the tough line President Trump draws. It usually is accompanied with short-term action and hot rhetoric. We're getting the same from the Canadians. But my hope is, for the sake of American families and for the sake of the American economy, that what we're looking at here is negotiation and not confrontation in a trade war. And that's how I would advise the president. Drive a hard bargain, but let's pursue free trade with free nations, most especially our trading partners to the north.
Quickly, before I let you go, I do want to ask about comments by Julia Curley, former CIA officer who served as your daily briefer during the first Trump term.
Yeah, it's like they're giving Pence opportunity after opportunity to try to stay relevant, but it's honestly embarrassing.
She's a trans woman. I spoke to her earlier this week, and she said, despite your different views, you treated her with, quote, great dignity. And a big moment for her in her life was you telling her mother that you must be very proud of your daughter. What was your reaction to hearing her say that?
I haven't read the article. I appreciate the kind words, but you and I have known each other a long time, Dan. And my conservative values are fairly well known, but maybe some people didn't quite know that among our Christian values is my wife and I believe in treating others the way that we'd like to be treated, with decency and respect. And I was heartened to hear Julia reflect that that was the experience that
Bro can't even talk. He can't even get a sentence out. It's so embarrassing, bro. I mean, the thing you guys got to remember is President Trump knows exactly what he's doing. This is the art of the deal. And he's literally allowing all of us right now to take advantage of this deal that he's doing with Iran, with bombing Iran. I'm personally buying heavy into the market right now, into the stock market, because I know that this is going to pay off long term. And even Trump said that. Take a listen.
You better go out and buy stock now. Let me tell you, this country will be like a rocket ship that goes straight up.
And I actually did listen to President Trump, and I did start investing in the stock market. And over the past year, my investments are up over $90,000. If you want to learn how to invest in the stock market, very beginner friendly, step by step and easy, you can go to thefinancezone.org, or if you're watching this on your TV, you can just scan this QR code and get started in a couple of minutes. Even one of you guys messaged me saying that your investments are up over $13,000 after taking the program. And right now we have a 90% off sale that ends today, up to $1,000 in bonus stocks inside the program. I go over which stocks that Trump has, which stocks that I'm buying, how to set up an account for the very first time, and I also go into depth about how to take advantage of this time we're in while Trump is still president. It's not too late. Mike Pence issues bold warning to Iran. Urgent plea to Trump. So Mike Pence is now pleading to President Trump. Can you imagine that? Mike Pence is pleading to Trump. Take a listen.
And former Vice President Mike Pence is here. And Mr. Vice President, you were mentioned in the diary at one point. Here is from June 29th, 2020. Fauci writes this: had important conversation with Pence. He did promise that he would get me out there on TV since he really liked my message.
So Mike Pence is getting exposed for literally conversations that he had with Fauci. What do you guys think about that? Remember, Mike Pence was so Donald Trump, he obviously wasn't a big fan of Fauci during the time, but it looks like Mike Pence kind of was.
First time anyone ever spoke that way to VP. He truly likes me a lot, and vice versa. Now we have to get the POTUS press people to agree. Do you remember this time at all?
I remember an awful lot about my time on the White House Coronavirus Task Force. It was a tumultuous time in the life of the country. The president shut down all travel from China at the end of January. He tapped me to step into the lead of the task force in February. It was an extraordinary time. Dana, you remember that. We didn't know what we didn't know.
In the time that we have, I think that the DSA and the socialism being on the march is something that it cannot be ignored. And here is Senator Manchin, who is saying that he doesn't like it, but can he stop it? Watch.
Could you ever support a self-described socialist candidate?
No. No way. My God, no.
And even if they have some good ideas?
I support the good ideas, but how could you support some of the crazy stuff they're for? Have you seen their platform? They're for dismantling everything that we know, whether it be the structure of government, Congress itself, or the Senate they want to get rid of, and then they start talking about all the crazy things.
So my question for you is not what the Democrats should do about this, but how do Republicans get in front of it? What should they be saying? What should they be doing? Are they doing enough now?
Yeah, well, the last time I was at this table, a book came out in which I've stipulated that I think in some respects...
Yeah, he's promoting more books again. Remember Mike Pence? He makes a lot of money from his book sales.
Republicans have lost their way. But Democrats have lost their minds. I mean, the fact that you have candidates, in Michigan and New Jersey and elsewhere, and of course here in New York, a mayor that openly embraced socialism, openly embraced Marxism. The DSA's platform is a radical communist platform, shutting down the United States Senate, seizing private property. I think Republicans, we have to offer a choice, not an echo. I've been concerned about a trend toward nationalization of American businesses that we've seen, price controls. I think now more than ever, Republicans would do well to articulate that clear, free market, limited government agenda that has defined our party for the last 50 years, all the more important as you see the progressive left overrunning the Democratic Party.
But the point about that clip with Joe Manchin is that for the next 2 years and 4 months minimum, every Democrat running for office is going to be asked the same question. We're going to see how they respond. Quickly, I want to ask you about Iran. Yeah. We had a Fox poll that came out about 2 weeks ago. We asked the question, on the ultimate outcome with Iran, the U.S. will reach what? Good deal, bad deal, or no deal? And 48% said no deal. What's your view?
Well, I have more confidence in President Trump than that. I think the Iranians should be very wary in this moment. Look, I strongly supported the president's decision to use military force last year and this year, striking Iran really for the first time in 47 years after they've waged a continuous war against the United States and the West all those years. But honestly, I think the president, after that first month where our military did a brilliant job taking down 13,000 military sites, I think the president has tried to create room for diplomacy. He's done that again over this weekend, even as we were marshaling military assets across the region. But I honestly think that the time has come for the president of the United States to unleash the armed forces of the United States, strike the remaining nuclear facilities in Iran, take down and degrade their ability to project force, not only in the Strait, but across the region. Look, one does not make peace with one's enemy. One makes peace with one's defeated enemy. And given their posture and their attitudes and even denying that negotiations are happening, I have every confidence that there will come a moment where my old running mate has had enough, and we ought to turn loose the greatest military.
What do you mean we oughta? Like, why is he saying we? Like, it's like he's still involved. Like, dude, you're not a leader anymore, dude. Like, you had your chance.
In the world to.
Are you convinced that he's willing to go that
take him
far?
back? Look, the president I serve with is a man of action. He leads from the front. I don't think you can understate the significance of his decision last year to strike Iran directly for the first time in the history of our relationship with the regime in Tehran. Unleashing our armed forces in Operation Epic Fury was historic, but now we've got to let our armed forces and our ally Israel finish the job, and I believe we can.
All right. Vice President Mike Pence, it's great to see you in New York City. Sorry about the rain.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for being here.
And look, Mike Pence is now saying Trump departed from conservative agenda. He's trashing Trump. What's going on, guys?
Joining me now is former Vice President Mike Pence. He's the author of the new book, What Conservatives Believe, Rediscovering the Conservative Conscience. Mr. Vice President, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Kristen. Good to be back.
It's wonderful to have you here, have your book. We're going to talk about it in just a moment. I do want to start, though, on Texas, this big political shakeup this week. Ken Paxton, now the Republican nominee. Of course, what happens in Texas could help to determine whether Republicans hold on to control of the Senate. Republicans themselves, though, have raised ethical, moral, even strategic concerns about Attorney General Ken Paxton. Do you believe that Ken Paxton, as the nominee, could put the Texas Senate seat in jeopardy for Republicans?
Well, I have great confidence in Republicans in Texas, and maintaining the majority in the Senate is enormously important in a midterm election where it's going to be an uphill battle in the House of Representatives, although I'm proud of the effort Republicans are making in that regard as well. But look, I see all of this as evidence of, the President Trump has enormous popularity in the Republican Party. His endorsement in Texas, his endorsement in Louisiana, his endorsements in Indiana proved that out. And I think the reason the president is popular is because during our time in office and over the last several years, people have seen this is a president who's been willing to fight the radical left and to champion the principles that have defined our party for 50 years. And I'm grateful for that. But the reason I wrote the book is because there's a new threat.
Oh, yeah, he wrote a book. Another book, guys. Who the hell's buying these books from Mike Pence? You know how much money Mike Pence has made from these book deals? You guys got to remember that there's a lot of money. Mother of all book deals, Mike Pence signs 7-figure deal for memoirs. Simon & Schuster is paying $3 to $4 million to Mike Pence to write these books where he exposes the truth about Trump, right? It's like almost like they're being paid for or like funneled or pushed by people who don't like Trump. Like, who in their right mind is going to read these stupid books by Pence? Would you?
That historic conservatism in the Republican Party. And
would you wake up and start your day reading this book about that Mike Pence wrote? Probably not.
It's a threat from the populist right that would embrace big government, the policies, many of which have been embraced by this administration, of not only broad-based tariffs, nationalization of businesses, price controls. There's also been a willingness to embrace some of the rhetoric of the populist right with regard to isolationism. There are voices that have pulled us back from unwavering support as leader of the free world, particularly in Eastern Europe, and even many challenging our support for Israel. And then lastly, just marginalizing the right to life, which has always been at the center of our movement. So for me, I'm not surprised by what happened in Texas or in the other primaries because of the way the president has championed our cause against the radical left. But I want people to understand what conservatives believe as we go into this midterm election. I'd love to see Republicans get back to running on those conservative principles again. And in 2028, I think it'll be more important to decide what we're for before we decide who we're for.
Well, you talk about the case for conservative principles, and I'm going to read some of your book in just a moment. But you also talk about the importance of character, that character matters.
Yeah, character matters. Do you think Mike Pence has good character, guys? Do you think he should be the one writing and publishing a book about good character? Please, for crying out loud, Mike Pence is the last person I would want to be taught by about character.
In public service, Ken Paxton was indicted on security fraud charges in 2015. He was impeached by members of his own party over alleged bribery in 2023. His wife filed for divorce in 2025 after accusing him of adultery. Bottom line, Mr. Vice President, do you support Ken Paxton?
Well, I could never, if I was voting in Texas, I could never vote for the Democrat nominee, Tallarico, who is a radical left, supports abortion on demand.
But do you support Ken Paxton? Do you
gender ideology of the Democratic Party? Look, I think in many respects, Republicans have lost our way, but Democrats have lost their mind. And I think the reason why we're going to hold the Senate, and we have a real shot to hold the House, is because of the extremism on the Democratic side. I mean, you literally have candidates, not just the mayor of New York, but some of the most prominent voices in the party that are openly advocating for socialist policies and socialism itself. And I think that's the reason why this election is so important. But it's also the reason why I think there's an enormous opportunity ahead for Republicans to be a choice, not an echo, as President Ronald Reagan said back in the day, is to literally say, as they go farther and farther to the progressive left, the answer ought not to be the antidote to the populist right of protectionism, isolationism, and marginalizing the right to life. The answer ought to be to sound, as the Bible says, a clear call for conservative principles, and that's what I'm going to be advocating in this book and across the country.
Yeah, let's talk big picture, because Senator John Cornyn's defeat is the latest. You talked about this string of losses, Bill Cassidy, Congressman Thomas Massey, several Indiana state senators. Senator Lindsey Graham was on this program several weeks ago. He told me the Republican Party is the party of Donald Trump. Is the Republican Party the party of Donald Trump?
Oh, I don't think there's any question about the president's popularity. I give him all the credit in the world for the
That's a big diss. You'll notice liberals will say, oh, Trump's just popular. That's why he won. He doesn't really have any real, wit or intelligence. He's just popular. Yeah, he's a former TV show host. It's like, this dude is talking with literally vocab right out of the media, the liberal media agenda.
The hold that he has on Republican voters, but I maintain to you that it's because of the president's commitment to take on the radical left in our 4 years and also ever since. But I think what's lesser known right now is the way this second Trump administration has departed from the conservative agenda that we governed on, the conservative agenda that has defined the Republican Party since the days of Ronald Reagan and before. That's an agenda of American leadership, limited government, free market economics, the right to life. And on a number of those issues, the president's been good. I want to give him credit for strong securing the border, the extending tax cuts, standing with Israel. But when you see an administration with broad-based tariffs, nationalizing American businesses, questioning and pulling back from our allies as they endure the brutal assault in Eastern Europe from Russia, I think Republicans would do well to take some time to reflect on what we believe again and take that message to the American people.
Is there room right now, Mr. Vice President, in the Republican Party for disagreement?
Well, in primaries, there's a little less room.
What about general elections? You're making a robust case against populism. What about broadly speaking?
I think that we're living in a time of extraordinary change in both political parties. You literally see the Democratic Party being dragged off, not just to the radical left, but to socialist policies and extremism on social issues. But in the Republican Party, there are these fault lines. But I still believe, Kristen, that the overwhelming majority of people that ever vote Republican believe in freedom, believe in limited government, believe in traditional values. And I think if Republicans this fall and in 2028 hold up those time-honored conservative principles, those voters will rally to our cause.
All right, well, let's delve into your book, What Conservatives Believe. I want to read an excerpt. You write this: we face a momentous choice. Will we remain a party of conservative beliefs, or will we follow the siren song of populism, unmoored to conservative principles? The future of our party, our movement, and even our country belongs to one or the other. It cannot belong to both. The divide between these two factions is too vast. Republicans must pick a side. Strong words there, Mr. Vice President. Is your book effectively a rejection of the MAGA movement?
What do you guys think? Comment below. Do you think his book is a rejection of the MAGA movement? Look at his face. He's almost offended by it because he knows that he used to be on Trump's side and now he's not.
Not at all. You know, Kristen, I spoke in front of more MAGA rallies than I could possibly remember. And these were some of the most freedom-loving, patriotic, God-fearing, conservative Americans that I ever met, and they still are. I mean, I understand the loyalty to the president. I understand the desire to support him in primary elections and to stand by him while he pushes back on the radical left. But I believe that the overwhelming majority of people in the MAGA movement believe that America is the leader of the free world. Believe in limited government, less taxes, less regulations, would reject ideas like nationalization of businesses and price controls and broad-based tariffs. And at the core of our movement is a commitment to the sanctity of life. I mean, we had the most pro-life administration in American history. We put the judges on the court who sent Roe versus Wade to the ash heap of history where it belongs. But Kristen, in this administration, we see a desire to relegate the right to life to a state-only issue, to actually have a pro-abortion Secretary of HHS who has done nothing to limit the availability of the abortion pill on a mail-order basis that Joe Biden made possible across the country. Dangerous pill. claims of the abortion pill on a mail order basis that Joe Biden made possible across the country. Dangerous pill. Claims unborn lives is a danger to women. So when you see the administration embracing those populist ideas, I think we're going to have a fulsome debate about the future.
Okay, and we should say there is a debate over the medical background to what you're saying, but let's stay on this topic. Man for president against Donald Trump in 2024, arguing that he put himself above the Constitution on January 6th. And I guess my question is, do you believe that President Trump is a populist and that the party needs to move beyond Donald Trump?
Well, I'm not much for labels, but I do say in the book that...
Dude, how many times do you have to mention that you have a frickin' stupid book, bro? Like, isn't this insane to anybody else?
I lost count of the number of times that I would say to the president privately, well, that's the conservative position. And he'd wave his hand and say, that's not conservative, it's just common sense. I mean, in fairness to the president, he's never really said he was a conservative. And in so many ways, I think he's, he represents in some measure what the populist right is about. The populist right is attempting to take the president's departure from the conservative agenda, whether it be on tariffs, whether it be with regard to Ukraine and Eastern Europe, whether it be with regard to life, and try to make that the new foundational philosophy of the Republican Party.
So are you saying it's time for Republicans to move beyond Donald Trump?
Well, look, as I wrote in the book, leaders fade into history, but principles endure.
Whoa, so he really has gone off the deep end, guys, about Donald Trump. Look at this one. Mike Pence says he privately warned Trump against tariffs in his first term. Mike Pence is a huge Trump hater, going on CNN to talk with nobody other than Caitlin freaking Collins. Pence rebuffs Trump on tariffs, Russia, pardons. He's gone full anti-Trump mode. What do you guys think about that?
All right, now President Trump has a message for all of us. Let's take a listen.
Rising market will do. Oh, it's going to get a lot higher. In fact, I told people 5 weeks ago, this is a great time to buy. I got criticized for that. Now they don't criticize me anymore. People should have listened. But it's going to go a lot higher. You see, we've never had anything like this happen. It's an explosion.
And I actually did listen to President Trump, and I did start investing in the stock market. And over the past year, my investments are up over $90,000. If you want to learn how to invest in the stock market, very beginner friendly, step-by-step and easy, you can go to theFinanceZone.org, or if you're watching this on your TV, you can just scan this QR code and get started in a couple of minutes. Even one of you guys messaged me saying that your investments are up over $13,000 after taking the program. And right now, we have a 90% off sale that ends today, up to $1,000 in bonus stocks inside the program. I go over which stocks that Trump has, which stocks that I'm buying, how to set up an account for the very first time, and I also go into depth about how to take advantage of this time we're in while Trump is still president. It's not too late.